Okay, everybody, it is Maxsheva time. Here is the official review video. We are starting from sheet 1. We have to just find it over here. Here it is. Emunah Ugula 1. Okay, so we learned here that Kadosh Baruch Hu Hashem spoke to Abraham Avinu, and he promised Abraham Avinu that he was going to have a child, right? And Avram's like, "Wow, this is really, really great." And God tells him in pasuk Hey, "Chutza took him outside. V'yomar beina shemaima, go look at the heavens. Usfar kochavim v'tuchal esparotam, go count the stars if you can. V'yomer lo, and he says to him, "Go yezarecha, you're going to have lots and lots and lots of children." So we're really going to be concentrating on pasuk Vav, v'hemin b'Hashem, because this is the first time we find the word emunah in the Torah. Ve'emin b'Hashem, he believed in God. V'achshaveha lo tzedakah was considered for that to be like a righteous thing. So Rashi explains, ve'emin b'Hashem means Abraham believed in God. God told him he could have a child. Abraham didn't ask for any signs or anything else, just believe him. And that was considered to be like, whoa, Abraham, you're really great. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu says something, you believed it. The Ramban immediately asks, it says, why is that considered to be wow? Why did God spoke to Avraham? Why in the world would Avraham not believe him? And is that what Emunah is all about? So the Chizkuni has another way of explaining this pasuk, which is very, very interesting. That V'emim b'Hashem v'achshelo sakah, he says v'achshelo sakah, Abraham chashav l'atzmo she'ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu noten lo b'zchuto zera el tzedakah osalo. So he believed in Hashem, but he considered it as like God's doing him a favor. V'achshaveha lo tzedakah, that Abraham thought that which God did was really charity. Whereas Abraham did not come off saying, well, of course I'm getting a child, I deserve a child, but rather this is considered to be tzedakah. But even according to the Chizkuni, the Emin B'Hashem seems to be that he believed in God. He believed what God told him. Rosh Shimshon Raphael Hirsch goes ahead and adds another stage onto this. He says, listen, emunah does not just mean that, oh, I believe somebody, and if Uriel tells me today is Wednesday, Tuesday, well, I believe Uriel. That's not what belief in is. Belief in is not just because I'm not going to express my opinion, or my opinion is wrong because I believe in what Logan says. No, that's not at all. Emunah means I have total reliance upon somebody else. When I have emunah in Hashem, it means, again, I'm reading, the real meaning of emunah is to anchor our lives to Hashem, to rely upon him in thought and in deed, and to gain our strength from him and to walk after him. Is to have total reliance, total trust, not to believe, just to believe that he says is so, but rather somebody goes ahead and says, I believe in you. You're out on the court and you go and it says, I believe in the team. Doesn't mean you believe what they say. You mean that you really think that they're really good and that they're really going to win. And that's what emunah in Hashem means, to really to give total trust in Hashem. And that answers our 7 questions for sheet number 1. Okay, so let's see. So, and now we're going to go to sheet number 2. So the big question that we asked about emunah is that, okay, how do you get there? Is it something which is intellectual, and therefore you use scientific methods? Scientific methods are in the laboratory. If I want to know whether something is true scientifically, I'm not just going to say, well, I believe it's true. You only have this feeling inside of me that it's true. You have to go in the lab and you have to be able to prove that it's true. When you do a math example, you can't say, well, I think the answer is 3. You got to do the example and you got to know your formulas or whatever it is and come to a definitive answer. Is that the way that we should go ahead and we should consider religion? Or is it very, very different? That religion is much more of an emotional sort of attachment to Hashem. Not necessarily, nor should I necessarily apply scientific method. I apply scientific method to science, and not to religion. If I apply scientific method, I may be very, very upset. I can't prove that God is there. and whoa, wow, that's going to really upset me. So maybe I shouldn't do it at all. So Rav Yeshua Halevi in the Kuzari, we learned that the Kuzari is a great volume of Jewish philosophy, which is a discussion between the Chaver and the Melech HaKuzarim, the king of the Kuzarim, who's interested in becoming Jewish. And Rav Yeshua ben Rav Yehuda Halevi is this Chaver, is this expert who is going back and forth with him on many different subjects. And he said, listen, really, you should just have an emotional attachment to Hashem, just to go ahead and just to believe. But, not everybody can do that. If you don't have that ability just to attach yourself to Hashem, then you should go ahead and you should start to try to understand it intellectually as well. So here's what we call chatchila. The best is just to have this emotional attachment to Hashem, but the Kuzari realizes that there may be a place also for use of scientific method, of proving of different things, of intellectual understanding. Now, Nachman Mibraslav, the Breslov Rebbe says, well, no. The way to go ahead is to just have total belief, which calls the emunat mimad, just innocent belief in Hashem, about any chachmas, about any prove this, prove that, and anything else. That sort of thing is for the laboratory, and that's for math, that's for science. Very, very good. But for your emunah and Hashem, just go ahead, do the mitzvahs, and you will, start to daven, and you will feel this unbelievable attachment to the Ribbono Shel Olam, and that's what emunah is all about. Now, there's only one very big problem with the Breslov Rebbe's approach, is that the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot says the following: Da mal hashiv la'apikoros, which means a person needs to know how to answer a heretic, a non-believer. Now, if I don't have the intellectual tools to do that, how am I going to know argue with apikoros? Somebody's going to come, it's going to be this proof, that proof. I believe that's not going to do it. So how does a Breslov Rebbe understand this dictum in the Mishnah? I need to know how to answer a heretic. So the Breslov Rebbe will say that is for great Rabbanim. Is not for the average Meshi and Yankel. It's a great Rabbanim who are very, very, very connected and steadfast in their Emunah. They can then go ahead and start to study and using scientific method and understand in order to answer the apikoros. But for you and me, our emunah should be just totally tzimimah, should be innocent and just so totally emotional. Comes to Sajagon, and he says, whoa. No, he's a rationalist. Everything in the Torah makes sense. Our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu absolutely makes sense. And you can figure it all out. It can all be figured out intellectually. Every mitzvah makes sense intellectually why it should be there. And it could be found out, and a person should spend their time trying to understand their emunah, not just believing, but to understand the emunah. And the only reason why we sort of like have guidance from the Navi and etc., because otherwise a lot of people take a very, very long time. And then you're going to go through a lot of your life, not observing, and because you just couldn't figure it out when you were 17. Or some people will start to try to figure things out, and they're going to go down, like scientists do, goes down a wrong path, and come off to wrong conclusions. So therefore, we are guided by the Torah, by the Navi, as to how to start to think about these things, and this gives us guidance. But according to Sajagon, the ultimate thing that a Jew should do is try to understand his belief. So I'm going to read this in conclusion. It's in Hebrew and in English. Kibanu et ha'emet be'ezrat ha'torah lo orurim. As we have what the Torah tells us what to do, puts us on the right path. Once we have the Torah, then we can go ahead and we could try to figure out and examine scientifically, intellectually, our relationship with Hashem. And that is sheet number 2. Now we come to sheet number 3. And we start to learn about different great rabbis who really dedicated themselves in teaching us about emunah. So the first one we came to was the Ramcha, Rav Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, who wrote a famous volume called the Mesilat Yesharim, The Path of the Righteous. And he starts out with his introduction, the Mesilat Yesharim. He says, Rabbosai, my dear friends, in this book, there is nothing new. Now, that's like pretty stupid to do in your introduction to a book. Imagine you're at a bookstore and you pick up a book about, about the maps of South America. And you know the maps of South America, and the author of the book says, in this book, I have absolutely nothing new to tell you. Why am I buying your book? You have nothing new to tell me. I want some insights. But the Ramchal says, no, just I have nothing new to tell you. The reason why I'm writing the Sefer about understanding and learning about having awe of God and about proper ways of behavior that a person should develop is that because you know what? This stuff is like really, really important. But in day to days, the chachamim, the rabbis are not dealing with it because they feel they have it already. And so they don't deal with it at all. And the people who are not learned and they start to deal with it, they don't understand it. So that nobody is really of capability is really delving into understanding our relationship with Hashem and understanding the way that a human being should behave. And we're just going ahead and we're just assuming, that, this is just the way that it is. And sometimes you have to write a book about the obvious because people, even though it's obvious, people forget about it because they're busy with other things. And therefore, he goes in number 3. Listen, this is like really, really important for 3 reasons. Reason number 1. Number 1 is that even though a lot of these behaviors are DNA'd into us, it's just part of who we are, really, in order for it to develop, you have to really talk about it. You can't just assume that people know to be kind. Okay, maybe innately we are kind people, but then you have to study it and understand it in order that should develop into something which is special. Number 2, the idea of midot, proper behavior, and yirat Hashem, and ahavat Hashem, and fear of God, and love of God. These are like the most important things in our lives. This is what makes us human beings. And therefore, we should spend time learning about it. We just shouldn't, say, oh, I know it already. These are like the most important things. And you can't ignore it. And then number 3 is that there are a lot of things in this world that for one reason or another take us away from proper behaviors, whether it be behaviors towards Ben Adam L'Chaviro, other people, or whether it be behaviors towards God, that all of a sudden I have all sorts of other ideas and things like that. You just can't take it for granted that you have it, and therefore it must be studied. So for 3 reasons, emunah must be studied. Number 1, it has to be developed. Even if it's there, it has to be developed. Number 2, it's like the most important thing in our lives, so it demands our attention. Number 3, there are all sorts of distractions that take our emunah away. And therefore, it's something it behooves us to go ahead and understand it. And now we come to daf number 4. Here we go. It's Chovat HaLevavot. Chovat HaLevavot was written by Rabbeinu Bachya. And the first thing that he says, listen, of course, you have to use your brain in your relationship with God. God gave us the gift of wisdom. Obviously, he wants to use it, not just to be emotionally involved with God. Obviously, he gave us the gift of wisdom, of intellectualism, and it should be used within our emunah of God as well. And now he goes ahead and he gives almost like a proof that of course, part of our relationship with God is to understand things. So he goes ahead and does an analysis of the 613 mitzvot. He says some of the mitzvot are chovat ha'evorim, are those obligations of evorim, are limbs, limbs, things we do with our body. We put on our tefillin, we sit in the sukkah, we eat matzah, etc., etc., etc. And then there are other mitzvot which he calls chovat ha'levavot, which are things which are really heart-based, Heart, heart-based. In other words, the way that we feel, my love of God, my awe of God. It could be ben adam l'chaviro also. V'ahavta l'recha kamocha, my love for another person. all sorts of other things like that, which are very, very much just in terms of the way that I should be thinking. Now, when it comes to Chavata Ivarim, mitzvot that I'm doing with my limbs, action mitzvot, he could further divide that into mitzvot sichliot, which are logical mitzvot. Kibbutz ve'em, I get. Shiluach hakan, sending away the mother bird, I get. All sorts of mitzvot you could really just understand. But there also is a category of mitzvot shma'iyot. Shma'iyot means that they're for discipline, which I may not be necessarily understand them. Now, do they have a reason? Don't they have a reason? We talked about parah duma, the red heifer, that we certainly don't know the reason. You still got to do it. Because again, Akash Baruch Hu says to do it, you got to do it. Even though I have no understanding of it, it's more of, well, you can't ki ilu, that a parent tells me something to do. So my parents saying to do it, I'm going to do it, even though I don't necessarily understand it. But okay, my mom wants me to do this, my dad wants to do it, I'm going to do it. However, when it comes to chovat halavavot, those things in the heart, you can't talk about things of discipline. In other words, my mom can tell me, take out the garbage. My mom can't dictate that I think how important it is to take out the garbage. She could try to convince me, and then at the end, intellectually, I may come to the conclusion, mom's really right, because the garbage is in the kitchen, like it really is going to smell and going to get all disgusting. And she's right, somebody's got to go ahead and take it out. So when it comes to Chovat HaLevavot, it has to be something which you intellectually understand, because there's such a thing as having something in your heart that you have absolutely no understanding of it whatsoever. So examples of Chovat HaLevavot, and when it comes to positive commands, say, would be love of Hashem, fear of Hashem. When it comes to mitzvot, lo ta'aseh, lo tisna et achicha bilvavecha. You're not supposed to hate somebody in your heart, right? Those are something in the heart. It just can't be that, that I have no understanding of this. And once it's in my heart, I need to have an understanding. By definition, I need to understand. And he goes further with further proofs that there has to be an intellectual component to my relationship. This kevansha adam murkab mikuf v'nefesh haseichel mechayev mechshayut sivuyim leguf v'sivuyim lasecha. Since a human being is made up of body and of soul, it logically says that certain mitzvot should be for the body and certain mitzvot should be for the soul. And it has to be something for the seichel. Again, I'm an intellectual person. I have seichel. I have intellectualism. There's got to be mitzvot for them as well. It's ridiculous to say that no mitzvot are tied to my intellect. He says, and even those action mitzvot, putting on tefillin, I can't really do them. But if I'm not intellectually involved as well, I could put on tefillin. Yeah, I could put it on. I could do the action. I would technically have done the mitzvah, but there's only a mitzvah, and my heart is involved in it also. So there are a couple of very important psukim that reflect this as well. When it comes to mitzvah between God, man and God, to love God, that's got to be sikhli. That has to be part of my intellectualism. I have to fear him. I have to understand that intellectually. Love that neighbor itself. It's the way that I feel. Not to be jealous. That's something which, again, it has to be. It's not just an emotional response. I have to understand it. Since Hashem provided us a seichel, a person must use the seichel. Since Hashem gave us intellect, he must use the intellect with our relationship with God. It's a pasuk we say 3 times a day in Aleinu. You should know today. And it should be part of what's resting on your heart. Hashem hu Elohim. God is the God of the world. Bashamayim mima'al, in the heavens above, al ha'aretz mitachat, in the earth below us. There's no other God, divine being except for God. And that's something which has to be understood. Again, you need to know it. So he gives a mashal, an allegory. Says there was a servant who was supposed to go ahead and collect taxes for the king. And this guy said, didn't want to work too hard, wanted to watch his TikTok and his videos and everything else. So he just got somebody else to do it. And he didn't check whether, the assessments were proper. And it says when the king finds out, that's wrong. It should be when the king finds out. Let's enable editing. And we're going to go back here. We're going to correct the mistake, because when the king doesn't been out, the king finds out that the work was not done properly. Even though he gets the money, but he's very upset because I wanted you to do it in a certain way. I'm not just interested in just at the end of the day getting my money. I want a system in place because for obvious reasons, because the next year you're going to collect taxes again. We need a good system also. So when you do a mitzvah, it's not just the bottom line, did I do it? Did I mail it in? It's also how you're doing it. It's also your intellectual understanding of that. Because if you have that intellectual understanding, you're going to do it again, and the mitzvah is going to be done better. Avodat Hashem is like a silver coin. If we just leave it, it becomes tarnished. Emunah, study emunah of faith, is what shines the coin. Okay, that was a lot of fun. Hope you enjoyed, and